Hi guys, Swamp Fox here. So this is going to be the first in a series of guides for the A10C and the A10C2. Now there are a ton of guides out there. The A10C2 has been around since September of 2020, and the A10C has been around since like 2010, 2011. So there's a lot of information out there, but I'm just getting back into it. And the best way for me to become proficient with the aircraft is to get to the point where I'm actually good enough and comfortable with teaching people how to do it. So yeah, let's go ahead and get the aircraft started up and ready to fight. So the first thing that you do to get it fired up is we right click the battery power switch and we right click the inverter. And then we come over here, and this one's hard to see, but the switch under APU start, we give that a left click and that fires up the APU. And then at this point, I like to close the canopy by holding left click on this switch. And that keeps it from getting too loud when everything spins up. And what you want to look for is this gauge right here. What this does is this tells you how close the APU is to being fully ready to go. And once it hits 100 and holds there, we're all set. So we're going to go ahead and left click here in the battery panel for the APU generator. So that's going to give us enough power to start the engines. So if we come down here to the throttles, if you hold right control and home, that's going to kick on the right motor. So what it does is it lifts the right throttle over the throttle detent to idle, and now it is actually allowing the engine to get fuel. And you can see the fan spinning up here, you can see the engine RPM here, and it's going to be fully started and ready to go when it hits 60. So we're just going to hang out and wait for that to happen. And one thing you want to pay attention to is the engine start cycle light here on the caution panel. You want to make sure that that goes out before you try to start the left engine. The reason for that is if the right engine isn't fully spun up and you're trying to use the APU to spin up both, you can actually get a failed start on both motors, and then it's kind of a pain to fix. So that light is now out. We are at 60%. So to start the left engine, you hold right alt and tap home, and that's going to fire that up and give fuel to the left engine, and we can see the dial moving there. So the next thing we want to do while that's firing up is start getting the aircraft aligned and the electronics turned on. So we come over here, we turn on the CDU and we turn on EGI. We come over to this panel and we turn on the CICU with a left click. We left click JTRS and we left click IFFCC. We're also going to double right click both of these knobs to turn on the physical MFDs. And now you can see both of these are starting up and we've got our HUD here. So then we're going to come over to the radios. We're going to give this a right click to turn on the first radio. Second radio turns on here. Third radio turns on with a single right click here. Once that's done, we sneak back over to the CDU and it's doing its bit test. It just finished, and now we have to get the aircraft aligned. Now on its own, it's going to take about 4.5 minutes to get fully aligned and ready to go, but we're going to shortcut that by hitting INS, by hitting Alt Align, and hitting Fast. So that's going to use a stored heading last position to align, just like you can do a stored heading alignment on the F-18 and the F-16. So while we're waiting for that to happen, it takes about 1.5 minutes, and you'll know it's done when you see right where my thing is here where it says DTC upload complete. That's going to blank out and it's going to start flashing INS nav ready, and that's when you know it's good to go. So you can see we've got the APU gen flashing. We don't need that anymore. Both engines have their own generator attached to them, so you can see our generator power here is on by default when you get into the plane. So we can go ahead and turn off the APU generator, and then we come over here and we left click to turn off the APU because we're fully up and running. Next thing we do is we turn on and uncage our standby attitude indicator by rolling mouse wheel down on this knob until it looks like we're good to go and wings level. That's where we want to be. And then you see where it says DTS upload here. That is the data cartridge, so it kind of looks like a VHS tape that actually plugs into the aircraft before you actually climb into the cockpit and start it up. And that stores all your flight plan information, waypoints, steer points, any mark points that are already preloaded in the system for you, as well as your digital stores management. So if we come over here to DSMS, you can see we've got 8 stations that are in red. And what that means is the A10 knows that there's inventory on here. We've got something on the pylons. They're loaded, but it doesn't know what they are. And we can't use them like that because it doesn't know if it's a missile, a bomb, a Maverick. It has no idea. So we click load all, and what that's going to do is load that cartridge and insert that data into the computer for the A10. And that'll be done once you see those dots reappear next to all the loading. So we're just going to hang out and wait for a minute here. And there we go. It is loaded. So now when we go back to the digital stores management, now we know what's on here. We've got our GPU 38 JDAMs. We've got GPU 12 LGBs. We've got a pair of Mavericks. We've got rockets. We've got our Lightning pod. Looks like we've got our ECM pod loaded on here. Pro tip, never take that. This is just a pre-mode mission. Never take it. It's basically useless. And then we've got AIM-9 Sidewinders on that pylon. So now everything is ready to go and able to be used. Oops, sorry about that. TrackIR freaked out a little bit. So if we pop over here, we can now see INS nav ready flashing. So that means we're good to go. So to put the aircraft into navigation mode, we click nav. You'll see that light went out and it is ready to go. So the last couple things that you have to do, and we're just going to stay here at this viewpoint, is turn on our pitch SAS, our yaw SAS, and our EAC. That is our enhanced attitude control, and it lets you be more accurate with cannon runs and better control the aircraft when you start taking a little bit of battle damage. So we will go ahead and kick those on. Oops, and you'll see this is actually a powered switch. When you click this and that's not ready to go, it will spring back and not stay on. What you have to do is go onto the navigation panel here and click EGI. It will only work in EGI mode, and now when we click it, it turns right on. We've got 2 lights left, seat not armed. We just come over here, click on that, and that arms the ejection seat. So now if you hit Control E 3 times, it will eject you. And then we turn on our anti-skid, which is pretty much like anti-lock brakes in a car. It keeps you from dying if you hit the brakes too hard, and instead of locking up and blowing a tire, you know, going 100 knots and skidding off the runway, it'll let the tire keep rolling. So now we're going to pop over to the countermeasures panel, and you can set this how you want. You can look it up in the manual and other documentation, but the way I do it is I set it to manual, so I have full control over the countermeasures. You want to turn on all your switch here for your dispensers, your radar warning receiver, your jammer, and your missile warning system. And then I always set it to program D. It's not the most efficient, but it's a nice little jack of all trades. It works against pretty much anything. It just doesn't work the best. So you get 1 chaff and 1 flare at the same time, once per second for 10 seconds. So it's nice when you're rolling in on a target and you can just hit the countermeasure switch and it can be spitting out chaff and flares while you roll in, so you don't get smoked by a man pad. And we are pretty much done as far as the standard A10C. We are set. We're ready to go. There is 1 switch different for the A10C2, and if we look straight down over here, we turn on our Scorpion helmet-mounted queuing system, and you can see this little box that's a little bit lighter than the rest. If we look outside the aircraft now, we have our queuing system ready to go, and we can see essentially most of the information that we get from the HUD. So that is it to starting up the A10 and the A10C2. We're ready to go at this point. We can taxi right out, fly, and fight. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. If you do have any questions or anything, go ahead and leave them in the comments, or if you think I'm doing something wrong, or if there's a better way to start it, go ahead and comment and we can talk about it. But thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.